Okay, let's look at this. What we're going to do today is, since we finished chapter 1 through 6, I want everybody to start working on their computers today. But before we do that, I got something here for y'all. Remember I told you that we would have I'm sorry, I didn't finish that. Exam 1's online. So let's look at these first 3 practice problems that cover everything in chapter 1. Not everything, but it's a large portion of it. Because how many of y'all finished section 1? 2, 3. How many of you even looked at chapter 1? Okay, so that's what we're gonna do today. Is we have to get it all finished, because we're starting chapter 2 next week, and we're gonna take that one pretty slow. But then once we finish chapter 2, we'll have the basis. We can move on a lot faster from here on out. So first question says -6 less than or equal to -6 minus 2x less than 8. Solve and place the answer in interval notation. So -6 minus 6 minus 2x less than 8. All right, remember, we're solving for x. So the only thing we're worried about is this middle part. Whatever we do here, we do it to the other 2 parts. So to solve for x, what do we have to get rid of first? The -6. How do you get rid of the -6? Add 6 to everywhere. Because this is one equation, I only put it in one place. So -6 plus 6 is 0. Less than or equal to, those are gone. So we have -2x. 8 plus 6 is 14. Okay, now we have -2x. Because it has a negative in front of it, we change the signs and everything across the board. Change that direction, change that sign, change that direction, change that sign. So 0 is greater than or equal to positive 2x greater than -14. So far, so good? Now it's backwards because the negative's to the right. So let's flip it over. So we can put the -14 over here. The 2x stays in the middle, and the 0 goes over here. Because we flipped it, the arrow still points to the -14. The arrow still points to the 2x. So we have -14 less than 2x less than or equal to 0. To get the x by itself, divide each term by 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7, so it's -7. Less than x. 0 over 2 is 0. What form is this? What notation? set notation because we have the inequalities. I asked for interval notation. So it helps. We'll see in the picture in a second. Let's draw the graph. Here's 0. Here's -7. Is -7 open or closed circle? Open, because there's no line, so. And 0, it's a closed circle. So x is between here. It's greater than -7 and less than 0. There's my x. So the interval notation, good morning, is between -7 and 0. Open means what kind of parentheses, right? And then close is a bracket. Oops, there. So there's the interval notation. And that's what we did last time. So that was question number 1. Question number 2 is a lot easier one. Find the center and radius of the circle with the equation x plus 2 squared plus y squared equals 5. So I want the center and the radius. I'll put it over here. If it's asking for a center and radius, what kind of equation are we looking at? A circle. It's a circle. What's the formula for a circle? X minus h squared. Very good. And equals r squared. So the center is at HK. What's H? Are you sure? It's got to be negative H. It's positive. So what makes it a negative? Remember, it's got to be opposite signs. Yeah, it's got to be -2. What's K? 0. Very good. If there's nothing there, it's 0. So the center is at -2, 0. What's the radius? What's that? No. I see what you're doing. Right. So right now we see this. We see that r squared is 5, right? So we're solving for r. How do we get rid of the square? This, you're just opposite direction. The square root gets rid of the square. So it's the square root of 5. So the radius is the square root of 5. If there's no square root in the equation, then you have to take the square root of the answer. If there is a square root on the question part, r is whatever it is. Because if there is an r, then there's a square root. Then whatever it is r. If there's no square root, then this number is r squared. Trick question. Question number 3. This one's the most busy one. Given the points 0, 0, and 3, 5, find the slope, midpoint, distance, and the equation of the line connecting them. So before you start answering the slope, midpoint, or distance and equation of a line, you have to know the formulas. The slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Midpoint is a point. The x is x1 plus x2 over 2. The y part is y1 plus y2 over 2. And what's the equation of the line look like? Mx plus b, right? So when you solve the first part, a, you have the slope already. All you have to do is tell me what the y-intercept is. So let's see here. We have 0, 0, 3, 5, y2 minus y1. X1 plus x2, comma, y1 plus y2. And the distance. And by looking at everybody flipping through their notes, it helps you if you make a formula sheet. Besides, I sent you all one last week. If you look at the very bottom of all the stuff I sent you, it's a formula sheet, a PDF file. But that has all the formulas in everything. So it could be overwhelming. It's easy, it's best to just keep track of everything we cover. because this is 0.1 and this is 0.2. Y2 is 5 minus 0. 3 minus 0. So the slope is 5/3. The midpoint, x1, 0, x2 is 3, y1, 0, y2 is 5. Add them together, divide by 2. 3/2, 5/2. That's the midpoint. Difficult? If you remember the formula, it's a breeze. It's just plug and play. The hardest part is remembering what the formula is. What do you plug in everything? The distance. Most of the work is done already. x2 minus x1. Have we done it before up here? x2 minus x1. We can just take this number and put it inside the parenthesis. y2 minus y1, that's the top number. Three squared is 9. 5 squared is 25. 25 plus 9 is 34. And for now, we'll leave it at that. That's your distance. Square root of 34. Ballpark. Using decimals, how far is that? Without using calculator, we'll just use a ballparkish. Square root of 34. Let's look at this. Well, we know the square root of 16 is what? That's 4. 34 is bigger than 16. So how about square root of 25? We know that's 5. 34 is bigger than that. How about square root of 36? 34 is less than that. So it's got to be less than 6, but greater than 5. So it's approximately 5.8 because it's closer to this end. That's called an approximation. And the last one. Do we know enough information to solve that one? So what's the equation? Anybody? 5/3x. What's b? You're right. By your silence, you tell me it's nothing. It's true. It's 0. This is your answer. How do we know it's 0? Because if I give you points and if the x value is 0, the y value is the y-intercept. If I give you an x, so the y value is 0. The y-intercept is 0. So since b is 0, all we have is mx. Shortcuts. Bring back some memories. All right, let's look at some of these examples here, some sections. All right. What section do you want to start off with? Y'all feel you can do section number 1 by yourselves? How about section number 2? I want to get to the first one everybody thinks is hard. Section number 2 deals with functions and graphs. Can you see that? So what's it asking? It's asking, is that a function? Is it a function? How do we know? You do. Yeah. Each one of the domain is going to only one range value. That's how you can tell it is a function. In the domain, they only go to one y value. I mean, it could be all the same y value, but as long as it's individual, each one of the x goes to one and only one range. So this one is true. It is a function. How about this one? Is this a function? Same reasoning. Each one of the domain go to only one range. Yeah, everybody could be going to 18. But number 20 cannot go to 2 different places. So that's how you tell. So this one is a function. Is this a function? No, because in the domain, y is going to 2 people. So in other words, remember when we described it in lecture, it's a correspondence. Can you write the same letter to 2 different people? If you mail a letter, can it go to 2 different people at the same time? No. So that's why it's not a function. That's why that is a correspondence a function. No, it can't be done. Is this one a function? Determine whether the correspondence is a function. You have the firm, the law firm, and the number of partners. This is because this one's pretty tricky because you have to understand a lawyer cannot work for 2 different law firms. It's a conflict of interest. And you can't be a partner in 2 firms because what if your 2 firms are against each other in the same case? You have to recuse yourself from both of them. There's a lot of money lost there. So that one is a function. Is this a function? Yeah, let me see if I can make it bigger. Oh, there you go. How do we know it's a function? Yeah, very good. All the x values are different. It doesn't matter what the y is. As long as the x values are different, it's a function. Is this a function? No, because okay, you have the same x values, but different y values. If you have the same x and the same y, then it would be a function. But since you have the same x, different y's, it's not a function. How about this one? Yeah, all the x's are different, so it's a function. What's the domain? Let me shrink this one out some. What's the domain? Yeah, it's just all the x values. So it's -5, comma 6, comma 5, comma 4, comma -1. What's the range? Since all the range values are 2, just write it once, just 2, right? Graph the function. How do you graph functions? I mean, do this on your own computers also. So if you haven't done this section already, you'll probably have different questions than I do. So it helps if you just go ahead and do it. So that way it's done. So how do you graph a function? Y equals 1/2 x plus 9. Yes, so first thing, you plot the y-intercept. Put a dot on the y-axis at 9, positive 9. Then what? Then look at the slope. Since it's positive, go up 1 from this 9, go up 1, and then to the right 2. And then put a dot there. So I have a line. So I put a dot on 9, go up 1 over 2. $210. Uh-oh. Oh, that's oops. I wish I could make this bigger. So I'm at 0, 9 there. And then I go up 1 and over 2. Well, I hope that's it. But anyway, it's I need to make it much bigger. But that's what it means. Start from 0, 9, go up 1 over 2, and put a dot there. How do you graph this one? Is it a linear equation? How do we know it's not a linear equation? Because x is squared. When we did last time with those charts, what is this graph going to look like? It's a U. Anytime you have any special operations except for the absolute value, it's no longer going to be a straight line. It's going to be a curve of some sort. And if the exponent is even, both ends go the same direction. If it was a 3, it would go opposite directions, or a 5 or a 7. So we know this is going to be a parabola. What's the y-intercept? 2. The y-intercept is always the constant. Is the u going up or is it going down? Down, because there's a negative in front of it. So we know it's going to go down. The y-intercept is at 2. So we just plot some more points. That's when you create a chart. Square root. What does a square root graph look like? From our table last time. Library functions. Well, here's a clue here. The square root function starts at 0 and goes up to the positive. Slowly going up. So what this one says, because it's a -6, we put a dot on +6. It shifts to the right. It's always whatever's inside the function, it's the opposite direction. Remember in circles, if I had x plus 2, that means that -2. If I have x minus 2, it's that positive. So it's always the opposite. Since this is x minus 6, the answer is this one. Because it starts at 6 and goes up. But again, this is why we went over the library of functions last time, so we could connect the graphs to the functions and functions to the graphs. The graph of the function h of x is shown. Find the function values h of 3, h of 5, and h of 6. So what does that tell me? What does h of 3 tell me to start off? This is a function. Yeah, whatever's inside the parentheses is which value? X. So go to x equals 3, which is there. From there, go to the graph. So at 3, h is 3. So we put 3 there. So what's h of 5? So this is the x value. Go to 5 on the x. Here's 4, 6, 5 is in the middle. Go up to the graph. And the h values are the y values. So it's at 7. And h of 6. Yeah, so I'll go to 6 on the x-axis, because that's what's inside the parentheses, and go to the graph. It is 6. Because remember, the functions, whatever the h of x equals y, it's the y value. So h of 6 equals 6. So on your computer, go ahead and do this one. Yeah, might as well turn your computer on. How far did you get so far? Section 2. So what's the answer to this one? F of 3. So I go to x is 3. And I go up. Yep, it's at 1. Vertical line test. Does a vertical line test show us that this is a function or not? Yeah, a vertical line test. If I draw a vertical line anywhere on this graph, does it cross it more than once? It does? No. If it doesn't cross more than once, then it's a function. So in this case, it goes up and down. I mean, all these lines go up and down, never crosses it more than once. So this is a function. Is this a function? Here's a quiz question. What's the name of this function? Or what's the equation, the function look like? It's a stair step. What does it look like? Remember? It's the brackets with the extra line in there. This is the stair stepper, the greatest integer function. Looks like that. Or int of x. That's the stair stepper. That's what it looks like. That was the last graph we did the other day. So is this a function? Does it, well, if we draw a vertical line, what happens at this point? Does it cross the graph twice? No, because that's a closed circle. That's an open circle. So this is a function because it never crosses the graph more than once. This is a function. Besides, if it's on the sheet I gave you last class, those are all functions. If the graph or the function is on that sheet, then it's a function. Find the domain of the function. F of x equals 2x plus 1. So the first thing I'm going to ask you all, what kind of function is this? It's what? Y equals x. So what's the name of it? Is it quadratic? Is it cubic? Is it radical? Inverse? Pull out that sheet I gave you last time. You have that? Okay, I'll give you one. It's a linear equation. It's a linear equation, which means what? It means the x and the y value never intersect, and it goes on infinitely. So the domain and range of this function is negative infinity and to positive infinity. Show you. Remember I said, if the x does not have anything around it, any exponent or radicals or anything, it's a linear equation. If it's a linear equation, the domain is all real numbers. And so is the range. So again, here's one sheet. And here's the complete with everything on it. I'm giving you the complete ones so you don't have to work it out. And these inequalities. Okay, let's get back to this. So by looking at the equation, just by looking at it, we know it's linear. Until we memorize it, that entire sheet I gave you, we know from the sheet that the domain is I want more. Where's the squigglies? Oh, okay. So I have that. And it goes from negative infinity to positive infinity. Come on, give me the inequalities there. It's a comma between there, and it's negative. No, the domain is negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay, so it wants the, okay. It wants set notation. Or interval, I mean. So what's the domain of this function? On the x, where does it start? Where does it stop on the x-axis? Oops. It starts at 0 to 3, yeah. That is the, so it's got to be brackets. Why does it have to be brackets? Because the circles are closed, right? So it starts at 0 and goes to 3. And the range, the y values? No, no, no. This is frustrating. If you look at the y values, it starts at 0 and goes up to 4. So it goes from 0, it's got to be a bracket, and goes up to 4. And that's got to be a bracket. Open circles are parentheses, closed circles are brackets. What's the domain of this interval? Is it a function, first off? Yeah, because if we drew vertical lines everywhere, it would only cross it once. So it is a function. What's the domain? What's the domain? If you don't know, please tell me. Well, yeah, but yours understandable. But everybody else was here. We talked about this about 3 or 4 days. Domain is the x value. What x values do I have? Where does the left side go? How far does it go? It goes to negative infinity. How about the right side? Positive infinity. So the domain goes from negative infinity. Yeah, I got from negative infinity, comma, positive infinity, and I close parenthesis. Why do I put parentheses and not brackets? Yeah, because you can never get to infinity. If you have a bracket, that means you can get to that number. Infinity is impossible to get to. What's the domain? I mean, let me just function. Oh, the difference of those two. Notice that this one has the brackets. If it was a small set of numbers, we have to put those inside there. But since it's a domain, a whole bunch of numbers, then we put on the top one. What's the range? Is the range an interval or a value? It's a value because it only goes through one number. It doesn't go up and down. What's the number it goes through? It only goes through one. So it only goes through number one. That's the only place it goes to. That's the only y value we get. One of one, we did that. Oh, this must be all of them then. Yeah, let me go to the earlier ones. We did those, we did that. We did those. Is this a function? Yeah, because all the x's are different. So it is a function. We did that one, we did that one. Okay, let's look at section 3. The table of data lists input and output values for a function. Complete parts A through C. Part A, in the change of the inputs x, is it the same? Select the correct choice below. Are all of the x's are the same distance apart from each other? From -6 to -4, 2. From -4 to -2 is 2. -2. So yes, they're all the same, and they're 2 units apart. Are all the y values the same? How do we test? What's the formula we use to test the difference? Y2 minus Y1. So we had -10, -6, -2, 2. These are my y values. This is y1, y2. So y2 minus y1 is -6 minus -10. Two negatives become a positive. Opposite signs, 10 is bigger than 6, so the answer is positive. 10 minus 6 is 4. So that difference is 4. Same thing. -2 minus -6. That becomes a plus, so we have -2 plus 6. 6 is bigger than 2, the answer is positive. 6 minus 2 is 4. Between 2 and -2 is also 4. So yes, the y differences are the same. So it's always the second value minus the first value. Now, here's the question. Since both of those have constant differences, what does it mean the graph tells us, the table tells us? Is it a function? Yeah. It's a linear function if all the x's are the same difference and all the y values are the same, the difference of them. So to be a linear function, the difference of x has to be the same. The difference of y has to be the same. Okay, so this steps between them has to be the same. I can do this next one. Are the x values the same steps? It may help if you get a piece of paper and start subtracting these things. 27 minus 11 is what? And those of you who aren't writing stuff down, you should have spit it out already. Is what? 27 minus 11. 16. 43 minus 27. 16. 59 minus 43. 16. So far it looks the same. So the answer is yes. It is 16. Are the y differences the same? No. 5.1 minus 3.5 is what? 1.6. 7.5 minus 5.1. 2.4. Right. So they're not the same. Since they're not the same, is it a linear function? No. You have to have yeses on the other two questions before you say it's a linear equation. given a graph, a picture, how would you find the slope? Count. First off, is it positive or negative slope? It's a negative because it's going down. As we read left to right, it's going down. So it's a negative slope. So it's a negative slope. I put negative inside there. First off, I go up or down. So I go down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces over 1. 6 divided by 1 is 6. So again, if I give you a graph with 2 distinct points, just count them. Up or down, always go vertical first and always to the right. How about this one? Put that phone away. You can live without texting for a couple of minutes. So what's the slope of this one? Is it positive or negative? It's negative because it's going down. We go how far down? 2 and over. So the slope is -2 over 7. What's the slope here? For those of you who haven't answered yet, how'd you get 0? It's horizontal, yeah, from slope face. If it's a horizontal equation, a graph, then the slope is 0. Calculate the slope. So the 2 points are 1, -8, and 5, -2. Find the slope between those 2 points. It helps to memorize these formulas. Told you all 3 weeks ago to do that. It should make life easier for you. Label the points. Remember, I have to stress this. Even though the homeworks and exams are online, the final exam's inside here. If you do really well on all your tests and really fail the final, that's going to be your final grade. Because anybody can go home and have somebody else do the test for them, or use one of the free apps that does the work for you. But in class, it's going to be a written test. No access to computer technology. It's going to be a written test. You have to show me your work. You have to do it. What's that? So, I asked you all 3 weeks ago to start memorizing these basic formulas. Less than a handful have done that. So start doing this. And this is why I'm taking slow on chapter 1. If you can't get number 1, chapter 3 and 4 are going to kill you. So y2, -2, minus y1 is -8. I put that in parentheses. X2 is 5, minus x1 is 1. Those two become a positive. -2 plus 8 over 5 minus 1. So 8's bigger than 2. The answer is positive. 8 minus 2 is 6. 5 minus 1 is 4. They simplify. 2 goes in both of them. The answer is 3 over 2. So the slope is 3 over 2. How about this one? The points are 9, -4, and 9, -9. Well, you could do it by observing what the points are. You know what if you got that far already, you don't show me any work. You just tell me what it is. So yeah, plug those in the formula we just had, x1, x2, and what do you see? When you finish those, what do you get? You get 13 or -5 over 0. You cannot have over 0. If it's over 0, it is undefined. In other words, if your x values are the same, you're done. It's undefined. If your y values are the same, then you have 0. So if x's are the same, undefined. If y's are the same, it's 0. So what's this one? Right, is 0 because the y values are the same. But if they're different, then you got to work it out. On these? On yours? Well, yeah. So actually, when you put those in the formula, if it's a negative number, put it inside parentheses. And if you have 2 negatives, they become positive. But now if you have different signs, let's say one's negative, one's positive, whatever number is bigger, that's the sign of that answer. So negative 17, negative 8, negative 19, negative 11. So this is the X and Y of 0.1. So whenever you plug in values after a negative or after a plus or minus sign, put those in parentheses. Because that way you see if two negatives become a what? Two negatives become a positive. So we have negative 11 plus 8, negative 19 plus 17. Different signs. If you have different sign numbers, whatever number is bigger, that's the sign of that answer. Since 11 is bigger than 8, the answer on top is going to be negative. 11 minus 8 is 3. Same thing on the bottom. 19 is bigger than 17, so it's negative. 19 minus 17 is 2. The negatives cancel each other out, so the answer is 3 over 2. Make sense? So the answer there is 3 over 2. Very good. What's the answer? Undefined. Because if the x's are the same, it goes up and down. It's undefined. F of 5 equals 2, and f of 9 equals negative 1. Because what this one's all it's doing is testing if you know how to read functions. Remember, functions are written this way. Whatever's inside the parentheses is your x value. Whatever equals is your y value. So we have x is 5, y is 2. X is 9, y is negative 1. Those are your 2 points. X1, y1, x2, y2. Negative 1 minus 2. Since they're both negative on top, the answer is negative. Add the numbers. 2 plus 1 is 3. 9 minus 5. 9 is positive. So the answer is going to be positive. 9 minus 5 is 4. So there's your slope. So -3 over 4. Determine the slope of an equation. The slope is always where in an equation? It's whatever's in front of the x is the slope. Because it's y equals mx plus b. Whatever, if it's nothing there, it's a what? 1. If there's nothing there in front of x, it's 1. So this one is 4.6. Ooh. X equals -7. What does that graph look like? Does it have a y value? So it can't cross the y-axis. So if it can't cross the y-axis, it has to go which direction? Up or down. Left and right crosses the y-axis. Up and down crosses the x-axis. It crosses the x-axis at -7. So what's the slope of a vertical line? Undefined. Well, let me review that for some from y'all who weren't here when I first talked about slope face. Slope face tells us the slopes of lines. If it goes up to the right, it's positive. If it goes down to the right, it's negative. Up or down is undefined. Left and right, it's 0. The equation is y equals whatever number it crosses. The equation is x equals whatever number it crosses. And these other two are y equals mx plus b. So if you're not sure about what the graph is going to look like or what the slope is, this will help. I wish I could take credit for it, but I'll send you a copy of it. So what's the slope of this one? Yeah, it's whatever's in front of the x, 3 over 5. What's this one? Negative, it's whatever's in front of the x. What's in front of the x? -7. Word problems. The number of visits to public libraries increased from 1.4 billion in 1998 to 1.5 billion in 2003. Find the average rate of change in the number of public library visits from 1998 to 2003. Here's your clue. Whenever you see the words average rate of change, what does it mean? Slope. Average rate of change simply means slope. Yeah, so for the X's, we have a point here, 1.5 billion in 1998. Whenever you have time, the time values are the X values. And whatever you're dealing with is your Y values. So this first point is 1998, comma 1.4. The second point is 2003, comma 1.5. And 2003, comma 1.5 billion. So what's the average rate of change between those two values? This is billions. So it's X1, Y1, X2, Y2. 1.5 minus 1.4, 2003 minus 1998. So it's 0.1 billion over 5. What does that equal? What's that? 0.02. 0.02 billion. Right. So how much is 0.02 billion? This is 100 million. That's 20 million. Because this is billion, I go back 2 spaces. So instead of 2 billion, it's 20 million. What's the slope and what's the y-intercept here? Five over 6 is the slope. Very good. Five over 6. And what's the y-intercept? It once is an ordered pair. You're right. It's -4, but what's the ordered pair? Very good. 0, comma -4, parenthesis. Because whenever the X is 0, the Y value is your y-intercept. So if I give you the y-intercept, the location is 0, -4. What's the slope here? Very good. It's no slope because there's no y value. What's the y-intercept? Yeah, since you don't have a y in the function, you cannot have a y-intercept. If there's no y in the function, you cannot have a y-intercept. What's the slope here? Yeah, so it's -5 over 6. -5 over 6. And the y-intercept as an ordered pair 0, comma 8. What do y'all think? Is it getting easier now? Or is it easier because I'm doing it? Because what I found in the past is as soon as you walk out the door, you forget everything. What's the slope here? To find the slope, what do you have to do? Yeah, solve for y. Because this is in what form? That's in standard form. In order to find the slope and the y-intercept, we have to put it in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So let's solve for y. What's the first thing we get rid of? The 8x, right? Oops, I gotta switch screens, don't I? Yeah, so the first thing I gotta do is get rid of the 8x. Negative 8x plus 15 and divide each by 5. Negative 8 over 5x plus 3. So the slope is negative 8 over 5. And the y-intercept as an ordered pair. Zero comma 3. So do the same thing with this equation. Three y minus 2x plus 1 equals 0. Again, in order to find the slope in it, we have to solve for y. We have to get rid of those. Get rid of the plus 2x because they have to be opposites. Get rid of the 1. Oh, get up on top. And then divide each term by 3. So the slope is 2 over 3. And the y-intercept is at negative 1/3. So the slope is 2 over 3. And they want it in ordered pair. So it's 0, comma -1/3. Oh, I forgot to put the parenthesis. Is everybody okay with graphing these equations? Plot the y-intercept from that point. This is negative. The negative always goes to the top number. So from this number, we go down 9 spaces and to the right 4. Plot a point, connect the dots. And this one, same thing. Solve for y, plot the points. All right, that does it for section 3. Then let's go ahead and take a break